What's going on, folks? Ted from Nerd Immersion here, and I am back from PAX East finally, and I've taken my time to sort of distill my thoughts about the D&D Direct, because if you're unaware, there's actually been a lot of information provided in a variety of different aspects than what we got in the trailer, or in the actual Direct itself, and I figure it was a good idea to compile everything together. Also, no, for everybody, I don't wear glasses, but I happened to pick up some blue light blocking glasses while I was at PAX East, and I figured, what the hell, why not wear them? And it makes me kind of get a good Buddy Holly vibe going, so... also wearing my Larian Studio shirt, which they were nice enough to give to me. And yeah, I didn't really have too much extra to say, but I did win this sweet SSD/M.2 thing in a giveaway by XPG. So that was a cool thing that happened at PAX. But let's talk about what was announced. We're going to go through kind of systematically and discuss, and then also talk about everything else that's been confirmed since that announcement, because there was also press questions and things asked, as well as follow-up and other articles and things that were available. But if you like this kind of coverage, if you like seeing me out at conventions, or if you don't like me, you should subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date on all my videos, so you can tell me how much you don't like me. So let's drive that number up. All right, so what we're first going to do is I found a pretty good article over on CNET that kind of did a pretty good job of just highlighting what was announced. And then I'll put links to all of these in the description, by the way. And then we can kind of use that as a jumping point. So if we go here, you can see, they say first thing that was announced is Spelljammer Adventures in Space, which we all know they came out the gate strong with something that everybody wanted to hear about. And they said, they described it as deep space meets deep sea. They also confirmed that the 6 races that we received in the Unearthed Arcana are going to be appearing in a finalized printed version, which is pretty much what we expect at this point, with the exception of the Strixhaven subclasses that were available for multiple classes. They are pretty much, at this point, if it's been in an Unearthed Arcana, it's pretty much guaranteed that it's going to show up in some form of printed version. Whereas, for those of you who are unfamiliar, several years ago, Unearthed Arcana to me really did feel like a true playtesting ground where they would just throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what stuck and what resonated with people. And for those of you who remember all of the subclasses, we had a ton of subclasses that were demoed and then just never made a final version. So it seems now, though, that whatever we get to see is pretty much going to appear in a finalized book. It's just what tweaks are happening. So they did confirm that the Astral Elves, the Autognomes, the Hadazi, the Gif, the Plasmoids, and the Thri-kreen are all going to appear in the book. We don't know what the updates are going to be. I imagine several of them will have some tweaks to be updated, especially the Thri-kreen. People had a lot of, like, myself included, were like, what's the benefit of the extra arms? Because it didn't really seem like you could do much with them. I assume the Astral Elves will also be updated to be more in line with the Shatterkai and the Sea Elves that we saw, and the Eladrin that we saw in the Monsters of the Multiverse. So it says it's a slipcase that has 3 64-page hardcover books, an Astral Adventurer's Guide similar to the Player's Handbook, Boo's Astral Menagerie detailing the monsters of the Spelljammer world, and Light of Xerxes, a 12-episode adventure for Spelljammer players. Enemies in Spelljammer include space clowns, vampirates, giant space hamsters, and solar and lunar dragons. A prequel adventure will be released in July, which is awesome because it seems like that's going to be free. So if we go over to the D&D website, we can also see the alternative art covers. The standard art are pretty much what we've come to expect, the similar style of art. And let's see if they give us any more information on the official page. It says it's a campaign setting, including space-based character options, spells, and magic items, which makes me really... Okay, I'm going to bring this so we could talk about this. Some people were like, why is Ted upset? We're getting 3 books. It's about the page limit of a Xanathar's Guide. But several other of these big hardcover books, like your Theros or your Ravnica, were somewhere in the range of like 250 pages. We are getting 3 64-page hardcovers with a $69 price tag. I personally would rather pay $120 and get 3 actual books in a slipcase, or just give me 1 book. Now, several of you will say that this is good because it allows you to have an adventure separate from the player section and the monsters, but that's how it's always been done with these other adventures that we've seen in 5th edition. Or, realistically, save some money, don't make them hardcover, make them softcover like they used to have back in the day with all of the old modules, and then give us more give us more meat to these things, make them softcover, and save the cost it would make to make them all hardcover, because realistically, the front and back cover of these things is going to be about the same thickness of the actual book itself. But yes, I'm excited to get it. I'm not upset about getting it, but I feel like this was an interesting marketing choice to make them hardcover books in a slipcase when you could have just done a soft cover in a box, which probably would have been roughly the same, or soft covers in a slipcase. And instead, we still get less content than we would have gotten. Because remind you that the Astral Adventurer's Guide that we can see right here is a 64-page book that's supposed to be the campaign setting, but it also includes those 6 races we just covered, spells, and magic items. So how much campaign setting are you going to have when you've got to add spells, magic items, and 6 new races? And then you got to tack on your whole campaign setting, as well as deck plans and descriptions for how to run different spell jamming ships. I don't feel like you're going to get that much campaign setting if you've got all this other stuff in there, especially because, again, like I said, these Theros books and stuff like that, I feel like we're more around the 250-page mark, which was good because it gave you that extra amount that you could have probably dedicated solely to the campaign setting. Now, it goes on to say that the Boo's Astral Menagerie, the 64-page DM statistic book, has over 60 creatures found in wild space in the Astral Sea, including astral elves, cosmic horrors, lunar and solar dragons, murder comets, and space clowns. Now, I'm less upset about this because we already know that they're doing the monstrous compendium, which I already covered in a previous video and during the live, the live stream, which is free monsters that are available, and the first iteration of that, which is available currently, is 10 free Spelljammer monsters. So right there, I'm okay with the monster book being shorter because you gave us 10 monsters for free right out the gate, and we already have them, and we don't know how often these Monstrous Compendium releases are going to happen, but for all we know, Monstrous Compendium Volume 2 could be more Spelljammer creatures, and we could get another 10 Spelljammer monsters, and then that really kind of pads out the Spelljammer list to somewhere closer to 80 creatures, which is pretty solid, I would say. And then I don't need a thicker book there, but I would have liked to have it made up for in the campaign setting. Okay. And then we have Light of Xerxes, a 64-page adventure for Dungeon Masters that is set in the Astral Plane, designed for characters level 5 to 8. So it's only a 3-level adventure. We know it's 64 pages, and they described it as 12 episodes. They can't be very long episodes if the book is only 64 pages. So is this realistically like 12 encounters? I don't actually know what an episode means, and we know it ends on a cliffhanger, so I don't really know what that ultimately means for us, but it doesn't sound like you're going to get too much time in a Spelljammer adventure. Again, similar to things like Explorer's Guide to Wildmount, Mythic Odysseys of Theros, Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, and if you think about all of those, they also included subclass options, so you can essentially remove, I guess that's probably the pages that we're missing. It doesn't have the subclasses. So if you pull the subclasses out, that would shorten your page count. And I don't think you need to add subclasses for this, but you could have padded that out somewhere else. A double-sided poster map of the Rock of Brawl, an asteroid city that can serve as both an adventure location and a campaign hub in the astral plane, and sturdy 4-panel DM screen designed for use with the books. So DM screen is nice. I think some folks zoomed in on the DM screen and said that they could see that it had some stuff. I don't. This probably not this particular image, but that you could see some information about ships on it. So it probably has like some spell jamming information, which makes sense to me. This is an entirely new concept with new mechanics that we've never seen before. You would probably want to have a quick reference guide, so that makes sense to me. Again, the $69 price tag is okay. It's a little bit more than a standard hardcover, which would be $49. But once again, if I go back and look at some of these other hardcovers, they were $49 with about an extra 60 pages worth of content. But we are getting the DM screen, which is usually around $20. So that sort of offsets it. But again, I would still rather have the content over the DM screen. And we have seen poster maps included in the back of pre-written adventures or campaign settings. So the poster map, I don't really consider that a separate thing. It's really, I guess the way I'm going to have to look at this is realistically, you're getting the DM screen versus 60 pages of content. I know that's not a true fair comparison, but I think you understand what I'm saying. So I just wanted more. You're going to debut something that everybody really wants. It has been clamoring for very clearly for years, to the point where we even saw in 2021, for April Fool's Day, Chris Perkins released that he was working on a space clown, which turns out that space clowns are, in fact, in Spelljammer. So that was even teased as far back as 2021. I think it was teased even further back than that they'd been working on it for that long. So if you're going to spend this much time working on something that people are so very clearly passionate about, the more meat we have to sink our teeth into for it, the better it'll be. Now, there is also, as you can see here, an alternative art cover all done by Hydro74. We had kind of seen the Boo art originally as part of one of the previous streams. It was sort of alluded to. I have to tell you this because someone told me, and I can't unsee it, that Boo's head has a certain phallic shape to it. I'll at least leave that like that, because I can't unsee it, so now you have to see it every time you look at it too. And then again, you can see there's the link here to the Monstrous Compendium to get you, again, the 10 new monsters, like you can see here, the Astral Lich and the Goon Balloon, for example. All right, so let's continue on. So I see here that Polygon did an article, and we'll read through what they have to say, just to see if there's anything additional. It's set for August 16th release. We know that, $69. It says it was first introduced in 1989, written by Jeff Grubb. It's still available. You can pick that up, again, as PDF form. Let's see. Starships, massive flying vessels. And this way you can travel between the different realms. And it talks a little bit about the first of the different adventures, the different books that we're talking about. And it says, this isn't the first time Wizards of the Coast has unveiled this kind of slipcase packaging collections. Mordenkainen Kane and Monsters of the Multiverse was released as part of a 3-volume set earlier this year. The books included with Spelljammer Adventures in Space, however, are much slimmer at just 64 pages each. Previously released hardcover materials for 5th edition are generally well in the excess of 250 pages each. Once again, alluding to that point. We can also see here it is on Amazon. I will put an Amazon affiliate link in the description if you are going to pick this up via Amazon. Can get a small portion of that if you decide to use my personal link. We also have a confirmation here from our good friend Ray Winninger over here on Twitter, saying that Spelljammer was confirmed, and someone said, was this one of the alternate formats alpha stream here? So that's just one of the alternate formats you mentioned. And he says, yes. So for those of you who are unaware about that, Ray Winninger had alluded to the fact that we were going to be seeing new D&D content in new formats that we'd never seen before. And we were told that it would not be a digital-only release. It would be something we hadn't seen. I had also speculated when we had heard this, and that's where I sort of came to my concept of sort of a box set, if you will, for Spelljammer, because this is a format we haven't seen before. We have seen traditional box sets in the form of like the starter set, Stranger Things, Rick and Morty, but we hadn't seen something like this where they had, I thought we were going to truly, and if you look at the imagery on Amazon, I feel like it does. Let me pull up the image here and I'll show you. This does not look like 364-page books to me. These look like, I mean, I realize it's probably just a mock art here, but that doesn't look like 64 pages. These look like 3 full-size books. So because of that, again, I was hoping that I would have been okay paying something in the realm of $120. I realize that that's not necessarily realistic for everybody to do, so I understand that that's probably part of the decision. But if folks only wanted piecemeal parts of it, they could probably just go through D&D Beyond to get it. Now, especially since Wizards of the Coast owns it, if you're all about supporting WotC, that would be doing the same thing. But you could pick and choose what you wanted if you didn't want to spend full money to buy the entire box set, if you only wanted one, or, you know, if you just wanted the monsters or you just wanted the campaign setting. So I'm going to continue through and see what else. There was an interesting article kicking around. Let me see if I can find it. That I had brought up as part of this. Let me just see here. Okay, so that was that. Next thing that was announced was Spelljammer minis from WizKids. We have actually got some close-up art of some of those. You can see you could do the $800 box set that will get you basically everything. There is the Gargantuan Astral Dreadnought is $262. We have the bricks here as per standard. We also have the Adult Solar Dragon, which looks fantastic with Prince Zeleth on it. We have, what is this? Icons of the Realm Ship Scale Astral Elf Patrol, which has 4 different options here. This is got an Ancient Solar Dragon, a Star Moth, an Ancient Lunar Dragon, and a Damselfly. We have the Ship Scale Wild Space Ambush, a Flying Fish, an Asteroid, a Night Spider, and a Nautiloid, which is pretty cool. So we can buy basically just the ships here. We have an Ancient Gold Dragon, a Space Galleon, Squid Ship, a Bombard Strike Ship. And then we have Adult Red Dragon, Swarm of Murder Comments, Tyrant Ship, Cosmic Horror. And then again, this particular one is Turtle Ship, Astral Dreadnought, Scorpion, Giant Gelatinous Cube, a Lamprey. And then down here at the bottom, Hammerhead, Asteroid 1, Megapede, Asteroid 2, Living Ship, Wasp. And then this looks like it's called Aesthetic. What I don't understand is these look like they're saying that they're ships or something. Oh, they're ship scale. Okay. So they're not going to be full, because I was like, how can the Astral Dreadnought be $262, whereas this one is $62 and you get 5? So they're significantly smaller. This exciting box set includes 5 figurines, a new entirely 1 to 600 ship scale. Okay, so these are basically for you to be moving your ships around on the battlefield. They would not be the full size that you would be fighting if you were putting your medium or small size character on the map. That makes sense to me. That's why we also see the difference between this Ancient Solar Dragon and this Ancient Solar Dragon. Okay, so that makes some sense to me. I'm on board with that. So I think that pretty much covers all that we had regarding Spelljammer. Let me just confirm that I'm not missing anything. Stormwreck Isle. No. You know what? I did have one article that is a really disappointing article that I need to show you. Because as we just got, as I just sort of covered, we had seen that Jeff Grubb originally designed Spelljammer. So this is a very disappointing post that shows Jeff Grubb says, yes, Wizards of the Coast is bringing back the Spelljammer setting into 5e D&D. No one talked to me about it. I am as surprised as you are. So there we have it. Jeff Grubb comes out flat out and says, Wizards of the Coast released Spelljammer, did not even consult the original writer in any way. And from what I can tell from that, I mean, again, it's just a post on Facebook, so take it with a grain of salt. But it seems like he would have at least been potentially interested in working on it. And what better way to do justice to the original content than at least involving the original creator in some aspect? The other things that were announced were things that I was, I guess, unnecessarily harsh on, were these campaign cases. The creatures here, you can see these are $64 on Amazon. Again, I'll put Amazon affiliate links in the description, as well as the terrain. And as you can see here, these are sort of flat pack that comes in a case, and then they have a bunch of vinyl stickers that you can stick on them to add a variety of things. Same thing with these, which are basically like poker chips that have, sticky icons of stickers you can slap on them to fill out your monster that you're running at your table or what have you. And you can see they fold up nicely into this case, and here you can see them with a sticker kind of on them. My only concern that I would have is that the vinyl will peel eventually, because you're going to be in theory sticking and unsticking these things. At some point, I feel like the vinyl is just going to wear out completely, and you won't be able to use them anymore. So they'll have to basically buy, additional versions of it. So they have the kit only. We have the manual. Oh, this is the monster manual plus the kit. And then you can buy just the monster manual only. Kind of in a similar vein, we have the terrain, which was the Dungeon Master's Guide, or the kit itself. So the kit by itself for either one looks to be $64. And you can get a slight discount if you purchase it with its associated book. Similar fashion for the terrain tiles. You can see they sort of puzzle piece together. And then again, you can put on your various stickers to build out your terrain if you so choose. All right, moving down the line, we had D&D Onslaught was formally announced. If you recall, I had covered this a couple weeks ago when the creator of D&D Onslaught posted on Twitter that he'd finally gotten a chance to work on it. And you can see here it is basically almost like a war game miniatures game. We can see we have a variety of different factions here. We saw the Harpers. We saw the Zentarum. If we scroll down here, we can see, again, some enemies here, including a black dragon, which is pretty cool, as well as this gnoll and a troll, things of that nature. So, again, this is set up to come out in Q3. It is going to be $150, but you are getting fully painted miniatures. A lot of the time when we did these miniature games in the past, or the board games, they came with unpainted minis. It was a nice source of unpainted minis if you needed them for your D&D campaign. This is $150. You'll get a game as well as 21 fully painted miniatures. One of them, as we saw, is a nice looking black dragon mini. So I don't know if the price really justifies itself for 21 minis for $150. But if you're planning on getting a game that you could potentially play, as well as miniatures that you could also pilfer to use for your D&D campaign, well, that kind of works out. So, again, and it doesn't really say, I don't think, in any of the artwork that we have, how many players it is. Does it say? You can see it has a rule book, a scenario guide. Oh, it's 2 players, it says right there. So I guess it's a one-on-one game where you play is basically, let's see if it says anymore. This core set involves everything. Oh, and there's a website as well, dndonslaught.com, which I didn't realize we had a separate website from just the WizKids page. But it looks like it's basically going to tell us the same information. Here we can see ages 14 plus, looks like 30 plus minutes, 2 players. So it is sort of good guys, characters here that we can see. Sort of the Harpers, or maybe it's the Harpers or the Zentarum, or perhaps it's both, versus sort of, I'm guessing, the forces of the monsters here, these 4 kobolds and so on. So it looks like we have a gnoll and maybe a Flind, or some sort of improved gnoll, an Etna troll, and a black dragon. And then I actually do really like the minis they chose for the Harpers as well as the Zentarum. We have some pretty cool looking ones there as well. So that was another one of the announcements that we got. And then, let's see, we had this announcement here, which I think is a very awesome announcement. The localized books are being put out in German, French, Italian, and Spanish. So we have the core rule books, Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, and Monster Manual, and the D&D Essentials kit arrived this Friday. So that was, oh wait, this is earlier. I'm sorry, this is an old tweet, my mistake. That was back in 2021 they arrived and all of that. And then part of the announcement, which I thought I grabbed the wrong tweet, but they grabbed additional books. I think Volo's Guide to Monsters and several others are also being localized, which is pretty awesome to see because, again, I'm lucky enough to be an English speaker, native English speaker. And since Wizards of the Coast is a native English speaking company, they put out obviously all the books in English first, but for those who would like to read it in their own, their base language that they know, rather than having to either know English or translate things, this is pretty awesome. So I'm excited to see that for the folks who finally get a chance to have outside of just the core rule books. now being brought into their own home language, which is pretty awesome. All right, so that was another thing that was announced. I'm not even going to really touch on, I don't have an article or a link for the D&D movie. We basically know that it's coming out, I think, March 3rd, 2023, and all we got out of that was the title is Honor Among Thieves. I said it during my live stream, and I do still feel like the movie wrapped shooting last year, and it's basically been in 1.5 to 2 years of post-production, which makes me possibly excited, but also potentially worried that you have that much post-production work to do. And other companies, and I know you can't blame it too much on the pandemic, because other companies like Netflix and other ones like that are sending out like dev kits to their editors to work on this stuff at home so they can continue to produce content and put it out in that time shooting while the shooting started during the pandemic. And I believe the D&D movie shooting started before that. So I'm worried because that could mean that there's so much CG in the movie that it's just going to be a CG fest. And depending on the amount of money you sink into it, that could be obviously a huge detriment, because if it's not done well, it will look like crap, and your eye can tell, obviously, when something looks off. But if it's, Marvel level or other, major studio level quality, then it might be okay, and you might not think anything of it. But I do still feel like you could have cut us a short... I'm not asking for like a 2-minute trailer. I'm asking for something like 15 minutes. And I'm sure there's gotta be I hope, somewhere in this movie you could have found 15 seconds where it's kind of actiony that doesn't have to have major post-production work. It's called Honor Among Thieves, so we know it has something to do with like rogues or thieves. You couldn't have like let's be honest, sometimes movies just cut content, they'll make content for a trailer, and it doesn't actually end up in the film. But like someone's struggling to pick a lock, and there's like a imposing sound of footsteps or something, and they're like, and they turn to the camera and it fades to black. D&D, Honor Among Thieves, right? Or someone looks up at a dragon shadow overhead. D&D, Honor Among Thieves. Just something simple to give us like a little taste of what we're going to be looking at, rather than just the title. Because if you recall, I do feel like we kind of got baited in the D&D Direct, the 30-second trailer. We saw in that trailer Space Hamster, we saw a Mind Flayer and a Beholder, which those all kind of led to the concept of we're going to get Spelljammer. We saw the script, like a script on a table that said Untitled D&D Movie, and we literally only got the title. Like, that was the whole thing. And I was like, oh, I thought we were going to maybe get like some of the script, because as it stands right now, the only concept of the plot of that movie that we have is what was put forward for the copyright that they had to talk about so they could copyright the film, which is, again, 2 sentences. They couldn't have... I just feel like we could have got a little bit more, considering the movie is less than a year from release, and we've heard nothing about it other than like leaked set photos and again, the copyright and now the title. Okay, so that covered Spelljammer, that covered the accessories, that covered the movie, that covered D&D Onslaught. Next up is Baldur's Gate 3 from, again, Larian Studios. I had a chance to actually sit down and spend about a half an hour talking with the team from Larian, which was actually a really cool conversation. And while, yes, it did seem kind of odd to put a trailer in there and not actually announce anything new, because as we saw in the trailer, they very prominently showed an Xbox controller. So many of us thought that meant we were going to get a Baldur's Gate 3 console announcement, perhaps a new video game of some kind, potentially for an Xbox console, but we didn't really get that. We got one thing that you could kind of maybe think is what it was supposed to be. But I asked the folks at Larian, like, what was up? Are you guys going to release on console? And they had to give me kind of standard boilerplate language that's just like, we want to release Baldur's Gate 3 on as many consoles and as many platforms, rather, as we can, because that's obviously, you know, it worked for Skyrim, right? Put it out on it, and it's been however many 10 years of Skyrim. They release it on every console and every platform that it's possible to release it on, and it continues to grow and do well. So they would obviously like to release Baldur's Gate 3 on every platform available so that you could play it. And then, you know, crossplay, asked about crossplay, would that be a possibility? And at this point, because it's still only focused on a Steam build, they're not even really entertaining the concept of crossplay, because they're not even looking at putting it out and porting it to other consoles or any other platform for that matter. But if they're able to, they're planning to, which is exciting news. Also, because it's been in early access to get the playtesting and all of that, I don't really know that many, other than like betas, like short-term betas, I don't know that many, and I could be wrong, maybe I'm just that out of touch with the video game scene, that not a lot of companies would put out something like being in early access like this on Steam on a console, because I feel like that would just add so much more to your workload, especially when you're workshopping and adjusting things left and right. So Baldur's Gate 3's part of the trailer was basically like, hey, we're coming out in 2023. We wanted to remind you, and we showed you a little bit of where we've come so far in the game. Which, you know, they also said, you know, if your partner asks you, you know, your licensing partner asks you to be a part of it, we're going to be a part of it. So again, I appreciate their position, and as I was told, they're basically in between major, you know, they're in between dev cycles, right? They do their panels from hell whenever they're going to do a major patch to the game, adding a bunch of new content, and as it's happened so far, that seems to be whenever they would add a new class to the game. Because if you're unfamiliar, since the game came out in early access, I think in October of 2020, and of course of their patches that they've added, I think 3 new classes. They've added the Druid, the Sorcerer, and the Barbarian to the game, which were fully, you know, classes with subclasses that were not in the game initially. And I believe they might have even recently added another race to the game. That was another one they've done, which then again potentially means there's additional voice acting required for that, possibly. They also told me their plan is, when the game is ready to launch at 1.0, is going to have every class and subclass that's contained in the player's handbook. So even as it stands right now, while they have clerics in the game, I think they have 2 or 3, maybe 4 cleric domains in the game, which means they need to add like another 5 or 6. So they've got a lot of work to do, but they also said as 2023 starts to roll around, they're going to do a big media push and work with a lot of creators to help promote and push the game. So expect more from me on Baldur's Gate 3 come 2023. Additionally, something that was kind of touched on very briefly was the new D&D starter set, Dragons of Stormwreck Isle, which we can go ahead and look at right here on the website. Something that I don't feel like they said during the stream was that it is similar to the Essentials kit. It's going to be a Target exclusive for 2 months. You can see right here, it says where to buy Target. If you scroll down, it will release on August 1st as a Target exclusive, and then will release generally everywhere else on the 4th of October. So if you don't have access to a Target where you're at, that's a little bit unfortunate, but I do believe you'll be able to purchase it on Target online. Now, we also didn't really get any information about the content of it. All that was basically discussed is that, I think this article here on Games Radar says that it's basically going to be better for new DMs. Promises to be a more streamlined experience for new D&D players hoping to break into one of the best TTRPGs. That's largely attributed to the digital features of this pack. Although it's available as a physical box containing a pre-written adventure, dice, character sheets, and rules, the direct stream emphasized that this D&D starter set features digital onboarding tools that immediately introduce new players to the basics as well. I assume that that's going to have something to do with D&D Beyond, similar to how we saw the expanded adventures and things for the Essentials kit that took it past, like if you finished the Essentials kit, there were 3 adventures that took you past that. It also goes on to say that what was originally leaked in that Hasbro sort of announcement that wasn't really supposed to be, that it was going to be $49.99 was the original leak. That was a misprint. It will be launching at $19.99, which puts it on par with all of the other starter sets. Now, the other thing that you can note here is it is only designed for levels 1 to 3. I believe Lost Mines of Phandelver was designed to go from 1 to 5, so it's a little bit less. It also, as we can see here, only comes with 6 polyhedral dice as opposed to the 7 of a standard set, meaning you likely won't have the percentile die, you will just have a d10. And something that I feel like is a travesty that has not been addressed by anybody involved in Dungeons & Dragons is the very present image of characters from the D&D classic cartoon from the 80s. Right here on the front cover, you can see Hank the Ranger and Diana the Acrobat right on the front in this thing. They're going to be part of the adventure, presumably. I don't know if they're going to be the pre-written characters that you'll get to play as, but if we scroll down and see, you can see there's this, and if you click on this image, you can see right here with that very iconic shield is Eric the Cavalier, another one of the characters from the D&D cartoon. Now we can see Eric here with his shield. Looks like he might even have a sword here, and there's a wizard next to him, or some sort of caster. I don't know if that's supposed to be Presto. Presto traditionally wore green, so I don't know, but... And you can see here, there's actually the blue dragon that's on the front cover, seemingly fighting another dragon over here. And I can't zoom in. I had originally actually found an art station of like the zoomed in version of the front cover that very clearly showed Hank and Diana, but you can see them a little bit more here. That art station apparently seems to either be taken down or I'm unable to access it at this point. I don't know if that was by just, a wizard's choice or what have you. But I'm actually probably one of the most excited thing for this because I love the D&D cartoon. Yes, it's cheesy. Yes, it's from the 80s. Yes, I didn't watch it when it was live on the air, but I just really enjoy it. So I would love to see this adventure, especially if they're bringing back those classic characters, which I also thought would have been an announcement in some form during the D&D Direct if they're going to address these new characters or these old characters coming back in the form of this new adventure. Were they going to do some, maybe a revival, maybe a movie? I think there was even discussions at one point because there was a final season planned or a final couple of episodes planned to get the kids back home to finish the D&D cartoon, whether that would be an animated movie or another season. This would have been a great opportunity to, perhaps the adventure will be that. Maybe that'll be, it's only levels 1 to 3, but perhaps that will finish it out. Or this could have been a great opportunity to announce a reimagining, a reboot of the cartoon, an animated movie. I mean, you could probably even crowdfund this animated movie on Kickstarter, and I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't well enough that this got to be a thing that got made. Again, we're talking Hasbro Wizards of the Coast. They don't really need to kickstart this kind of a thing to get it off the ground, but it's an option they could have done, and I would have liked to have seen something like that in this announcement. The other thing was Neverwinter, the MMO, which I did not realize is actually from 2013. So Neverwinter, the MMO, is actually coming up on its 10-year anniversary. Again, it's an MMO that is almost 10 years old, but it is the only sort of constantly updated D&D video game that we have, other than, again, Baldur's Gate 3, but that's not even out yet. Announced a new campaign called Dragonslayer. Now, I have had the opportunity to play Neverwinter a little bit over the years when I was in between campaigns and looking for something Dungeons & Dragons-y to fill the void. I picked up Neverwinter. I played it pretty consistently for a while, but it's undergone so many changes since the last time I played. It's basically fundamentally a different game at this point. It's essentially a new storyline tied to fighting dragons, right? They're part of the iconic history of the game, and it kind of makes sense. There were dragons in the game that you could fight, but I didn't feel like they were truly epic encounters because I felt like you could fight them from relatively early on. It sounds like this is going to do a big change to adjust that. So you can see here, it's the 23rd module for Neverwinter called Dragonslayer. It's going to be launching to PC, PlayStation, and Xbox this June. Now, that's nothing crazy because Neverwinter has been out on PlayStation and Xbox for years at this point, and pretty much anytime a new patch drops in one version of the game, it drops in all three. Now, if you're trying to tell me that that was the purpose of the Xbox controller in the trailer, that's really lame, in my opinion. If you're gonna basically tease a console game, don't tease it as something that you already are covering. That felt like it should have been an announcement for either a brand new D&D video game, perhaps a tie-in to the D&D movie, one of the existing adventures, a wholly brand new game that we haven't seen before, or the console announcement of Baldur's Gate 3. I feel like we got baited into that. If this was supposed to cover that controller, that is really lame. So if we continue on just to read a little bit about it, it'll add a bunch of new content when it launches in June. Talks a little bit about the history with Valindra's Shadowmantle. And then it says it introduces a new dragon hunt system where players can join with Smerdag Dragon, Bane's Dragonslayers to face dragons in their lairs. Seems like it's going to be almost more like a raid sort of situation, right? You can fight a variety of different dragons of different types and ages, young, adult, and ancient. Each type of dragon will come with its own set of challenges. There will be dragon lairs. Sorry, Adora's playing with a toy. That'll be explored and rewards that players can acquire. They're also going to revamp any of the dragons that are already in Neverwinter and revamp the Temple of Tiamat, which is sort of a big final sort of mass raid encounter that leads to a fight against Tiamat. So they're going to adjust that, which also makes sense. And then I think the only other announcement that really sticks out in my mind that was from that was Dragonlance, right? So we can see here, Ray Winninger says, yes, Dragonlance confirmed. We've cooked up an interesting new play experience. And you can see, I don't even think it's on the Wizards of the Coast website, but they announced, hey, how you doing? They announced a new sort of box adventure. Like, I'll see if I can actually pull it up on Twitter here while we're talking, but they called it like a Dragonlance, like a war game or something like that. Let's go ahead and pull it up. So Wizards D&D and see if they actually show it here. I imagine they would. Onslaught, the expanded. Oh, here's the Dragonlance. So this is the trailer. So if we skip to the end of the trailer, we can see, yeah, adventure book and battle game coming late 2022, and it says Dragonlance Warriors of Krynn, and you can see it looks like a chunky box. So a lot of people were speculating, what's the point of this box? Is it supposed to be part of the adventure? Is it something new? And here we can see Poljack on Twitter says, my guess, the Dragonlance D&D 5e game and the battle game can be played completely separately, but you can combine them if you wish. When a big battle breaks out in the RPG, you can use the battle to play out these large-scale conflicts, then return to the RPG. Am I close? Ray Winninger says, yes, 100% correct. Continuing down that line, so my worry from what we know is that the battle game is going to include a 5e source book and lock it behind something players might not want to buy. And Ray says, no, that's not the case. Battle game is optional and doesn't contain any RPG material. There will be a bundle product that contains both RPG book and battle game. So you don't have to buy them, but you can. Continuing on, will the releases be tied into the novels that were being written a couple of years ago, but so far haven't been released? No, this is a new Dragonlance story. And tell us more about this battle game. Are we getting a 5e skirmish game a la Chainmail? And Ray says, no, not quite. It's a standalone cooperative board game that recreates large-scale battles on Krynn, 20 to 100k soldiers per side. It mates with the RPG product. You can import your RPG characters into the board game to play out any epic battles that arise while adventuring, which is something that I said is pretty interesting because we have had issues with no real good way to do large-scale combat in D&D 5e. Would you stop chewing on books? And then again, to continue with this sort of sad news, in the same vein as this thing from Jeff Grubb, we can see that Margaret Weiss goes on to say, WotC is bringing a Dragonlance game book, and they didn't talk to me or Tracy on that. So that is also exceptionally disappointing. Those are giveaway books, little girl. You can't go eating the books that I'm trying to give away to people. So there you have it. While it is exciting to see Spelljammer and Dragonlance return, both the original writers of Spelljammer, Jeff Grubb, and the original creators of Dragonlance, Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, were not consulted in the production of either of these books, so they will happen separately from it. And if you saw my interviews with the Hickmans regarding Dragon Riders of Abarax, their Kickstarter I had mentioned, what are your thoughts about them using Fizban's Fizban's Treasury of Dragons using Fizban's name on the book? And they said, we don't know anything about it. We haven't seen a single thing. They didn't consult us at all. So it seems like Wizards of the Coast, I do feel like they keep a relationship with Keith Baker, as I do believe Keith Baker was involved with the Eberron book that was put out. But I could be wrong on that. But yeah, apparently, apparently we're not involving the original creators at all on these new books, which is definitely upsetting, as who knows the content better than the people who originally created it. And again, it also doesn't seem to me like any of the original creators are opposed to being involved. It actually seems like they would very much like to be, even if it was purely like an executive producer credit or a consult. Oh, stop it. Somebody wants to play. All right, well, that's a good enough time to stop this video. We've been talking for about 45 minutes. So let me know, folks, what you think about everything we covered in this video. Did I miss anything? I feel like I did a pretty good job of trying to track down and find additional information that was released on the side so that everyone would be aware. But anyway, I'll put links, as I said, to everything in the description down below. If you haven't liked and subscribed to this video and subscribe to the channel, please consider doing so now. And I will see you all next time.